Hello and welcome to the OKPreps Extra Show. I'm Patrick Prince, joined as always by Barry Lewis. Our first show for the year 2025. Bear, are you a New Year's resolution kind of guy?
Um, a little bit. Yes, not anything too drastic, but I always find it's a good time to um, make at least some small promises to myself and things I need to do better on. And, you know, getting it's like a new beginning in a sense.
Give us a couple.
Oh, well, here's one you can relate to, Patrick. Want to get to the fitness center more this year than I have in the last year because I know you've been big into the fitness um, daily planning, and that's part of your daily routine pretty much. And it's been a part of mine for quite a while, but in the last couple of years, well, really since COVID, haven't been to the fitness center or been able to get there as much as I would like to and need to really. And I was a little better last year, but I know I can do a lot better this year. And so that is a sort of one of those small things I have set my mind to do here at the start of the year. And so far, off to a good start.
Okay. So what's your goal? How many times in a week would you like to get to a gym, all things perfect?
All things perfect would like three, at least before COVID, I was getting for about two and a half solid workouts a week on the average. So that's a realistic goal. But again, against since COVID and haven't been able to reach that level that I had pre-COVID. So that is a goal for this year.
I thought of you last night, Barry, and I thought about you, and I said I got to bring this up to Barry on our show. Do you watch Landman?
I have thought about it a lot, but I actually have not seen a full episode because I saw all the promos for it while watching Yellowstone. And
Okay, you
so I see Landman's got a great cast and it's really intriguing. So I kept on thinking after Yellowstone wrapped up that I'd start getting into Landman, but I have not yet.
okay, you need to. It's really good. It's typical Taylor Sheridan stuff. Like you said, it's got great characters. It's not just the star. Everybody is a good character. It's a good storyline. It's well written. It's a really good show. But what made me think of you is Jerry Jones appeared on last night's episode, playing himself, and he has like a monologue, Barry. He didn't just have a line or a little moment where, hey, I'm Jerry Jones and I'm in this episode. He had a like an acted scene where he delivered this monologue and he was great.
Wow.
I'm telling you, I'm like, this guy can bring it. And I won't give anything away, but he's talking to John Hamm, who
One of my favorites, by
oh,
the
he's
way.
awesome. Yeah, he's awesome. Who's a billionaire owner of the oil company featured in the show. And John Hamm has some health problems. Jerry Jones visits him in the hospital, basically to talk to him about maybe it's time to readjust some of your priorities. And just goes on this. I mean, I didn't time it, but several minute or so dialogue on the importance of family and priorities and taking time for the things that's important. And he was great, Barry. My wife and I were watching it, and she's not a sports fan. She didn't even really know who that was. And I'm like, well, that's Jerry Jones, the Dallas Cowboys owner. And she said something like, well, who's he playing? I'm like, he's playing himself. And at the end of it, at the end of his little speech, she was like, he was really good. And I'm like, he was excellent. So anyway, you need to watch that, Barry. It's a great show anyway. But when Jerry Jones made that appearance and gave his little speech, it was great. It was really great. I loved it.
I remember when he was on the Dallas reboot about 10, 12 years ago. I thought, I don't know, he didn't have that big a part, but in that, but it was interesting to see him in that. And I'm glad he's doing well on something these days.
Well, all right, that's a little homework assignment for you this week, Barry, because you don't have quite enough to do in a given week. Watch last night's episode of Landman and tell me what you think of Jerry Jones. I thought he was excellent. I hope he makes future appearances. I'll just say that. All right, shall we talk a little high school sports now?
Let's do it.
Okay, so this is kind of our third week of our kind of Barry's best of. Last week we did five emerging stars for next season. That was really cool. I talked about five good players to watch next season. The week before that, we talked about what did we talk about? What did we talk about 2 weeks ago?
Like
Your
five best games.
five best games. Thank you. I'm old. My memory's short. This week, we thought we would talk about kind of your best high school stories of 2024, not just football, 2024. So you ranked your top five. Let's start, and we'll count down. Let's start with number five, one-time free transfers. Take it away.
Yes, as if the transfer, I use the term transfer portal. It's not officially called that in high schools, but in a sense, it's sort of like an unofficial transfer portal, what they're doing in colleges in the high school ranks. That gained even more steam and momentum with more people transferring than ever this past year when the OSSA approved a one free move for student athletes if they would like to pursue that. And that takes place. You can do that every year, like between July 1st and 15th, I believe is the time frame that that is allowed, where you don't have to anymore change your residence. If you live in one district and want to move to another district, and you are allowed to do that, assuming that that new district, new school that you're going to has room for you. So that's another part of the complication because some student athletes who might be interested in moving and try to do that, their new school or new district doesn't necessarily have room for them. So that's now for student athletes, you don't have to change your residence if you want to move out of district now. You get one freebie on that.
I mean, that's a seismic shift in how high school athletics works. Yes, I'm not overstating it.
It can be. I don't think it necessarily was this past year because um, it was done not with a lot of lead time for people to make moves, and there's already because of steps that were in place already. There's already a lot of movement anyway, but maybe this will be the true reflection on how big a deal it is this summer. Now that people know what's ahead of them and that they can do this and have time to plan to do that. So I think this summer will tell a lot as far as that. But again, even before that rule, there are a lot of moves going on anyway.
Yep, very good point. Okay, number four on your list, the redistricting. I can't say that word. Say that word for me, Barry, because I can't talk.
Redistricting.
Thank you, thank you. We're doing English classes here. The redistricting chaos from the spring.
Yes, back in April, an Oklahoma County District Judge threw everybody's football schedule into a chaos and a mess when he basically did away with the amendments the OSSA had instituted to Rule 14, which was Rule 14 basically has to do with trying to even the playing field between public and private schools, and they'd done some amendments to that the previous year. They had established a committee to try and make it even better. Well, some of the private schools didn't, especially in the Oklahoma City area, didn't think that made it better, and so they went to court. And then in April, the ruling came down and said that no, 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 effective immediately, pretty much. We're doing away with those amendments. And so then that meant all the districts that had been set up for the 2024 and 25 football seasons, they now had to be altered because the classifications for some teams would be changed. And this is something that caused a lot of chaos because football schedules for a season are usually well in place, like about a year, at least in the first of the 2-year redistricting period. Those schedules are pretty well put in place like a year in advance. And there's a lot of things that go into that, like when do you set up your homecoming game? When do you set up senior night? All types of promotions. And now all of a sudden in April, which was like only 4 months before the season started, like all the schedules are up in the air at that point. I mean, sometimes you figure you you work your non-district schedule a lot of times, depending, and it's done in concert with who you're playing in district games because you don't want to set up a non-dist one of your first three games against a team that you're going to be playing in district. So it just it was a wild scramble for a month because of that, and teams didn't know which classes they districts where they were going to be in. Classes had to be changed. Like for example, Lincoln Christian was going to be in 4A. They were going to be in the same district as Wagner. Wouldn't that have been a blockbuster
Oh,
district?
yeah.
In Lincoln Christian uh, was a school that wanted to move up to 4A. They were looking forward to it, and they were sent back to 3A, which they eventually won. And but it was really wild and crazy. Finally, it took about a month. Finally, the redistricting was done, the reclassification's done, the schedules finally could be made, like only like about 3 months ahead of time when they were finalized. And it was quite a wild thing to do, especially because they were trying to get it done all before school ended for the school year. So it was really crazy, chaotic, and hopefully, and I know the administrators involved, hopefully they don't have, I know they hope that they don't have to go through anything like that again.
Number three on your list, coaching changes of 2024.
Yes, I mean, we all remember, of course, it's in our recent memory, the wild finish at the end of the football season with so many, not just coaching moves, but big time marquee coaching moves. All the 6A1 schools in our area, except for Bixby, changed coaches in about a 2 week span, 3 week span. Started off with Broken Arrow and then Jenks, Union, Union and Owasso, Muskogee, Wagner. Wagner's still looking for a new coach. And so it was amazing when you talk about and Bill Blankenship getting back into coaching. Okay, he gets back into coaching as Owasso's head coach. Who could have seen that? Because Antonio Graham goes from Owasso to Union after coach Kirk Frederick stepped down, retired from, shouldn't say retired, he just stepped down from being the head coach at Union. Keith Riggs steps down as the head coach at Jenks. Adam Gaylor is DC. Gets that job as head coach. Travis Hill replaces Josh Blankenship at Broken Arrow. And then Dale Condit moves from Wagner to Muskogee. So it was just going one after another in a short period of time. It was so wild. So many marquee head coaches on the move. But we shouldn't forget that the year began with quite a few big coaching moves too. So it wasn't just an end of the year thing. I think it was I think it was like the first Monday, like about a year ago today, in a sense, not the exact date, but the first Monday of the new year, when I learned and we broke the story that Antoine Jimerson was coming back to Tulsa Public Schools after 15 years away and was going to be the East Central head football coach and coming back from Texas. I mean, that was huge. And he's got the East Central program going back in getting back on track. And then you had in February, Tag Gross stepping down as Holland Hall's head football coach after 24 years. And Brian Thompson, who'd been on his staff for a long, long time, becomes the new head coach there. So those are just like two huge moves right there. And then Booker T. Washington, Jonathan Brown is forced out there. And he eventually winds up on the Union staff, but he is replaced by Dan Bitson. And what a job Dan Bitson did in getting Booker T. Washington back, being Booker T. Washington as far as success on the football field. So, I mean, from the start of the year to the end of the year, there were so many incredible coaching change stories.
Number two on your list, owasso-basketball, led by, of course, Jalen-Montonai, who is still only a junior this year. Feels like he's been around forever.
I know when I did my Tournament of Champions all tournament team, and I try to double check and make sure all the details are right, and I have their school class by their name and as well as their scoring average. It just never looks right to me seeing Jalen-Montonai Jr. I keep on thinking, oh, you need a senior because it seems like he's been such an impact player for so long. We've been talking about him for so long, but it's just sometimes I need to remind myself he's only a junior. So, which is why he's not committed anywhere right now because he's still got a year before, almost a year before he can sign with the college, and that'll be very interesting a story to watch in 2025. I think he's cut down his list to about 13 or 15 teams right now, so everybody wants him. But yes, from start to finish, Owasso basketball, huge story because you always felt, I mean, they were at least a co-favorite to win the state championship last season along with Edmond North. They had just ended 2023 calendar year with the battle in the Tournament of Champions, and but it seemed in Owasso in a dramatic comeback over Edmond North in the championship game wins the tournament, not the Tournament of Champions in March, but the Class 6A state tournament. Jalen-Montonai with an incredible performance, especially down the stretch in that game. And it was really quite a comeback story for Owasso, not just that game, but even though they had what most people would consider a great regular season, they did not win the area tournament.
Mm-hmm.
They did not win their area tournament, and they looked sort of like not really peaking at the right time going into the state tournament because they had to go through the area losers bracket, or at least in the area called the area consolation game to qualify. But they put it all together in the state tournament, and they finally get the gold ball, the first basketball boys gold ball in Owasso history. And now at the end of 2024 in December, they had quite a December going to Florida and beating two national top 10 teams. I mean, that is so impressive. They played four top 20 teams, national top 20 teams there, and they acquitted themselves well down there, and they're certainly worthy, at least being in the picture of being a national top 20 team considered. And then right after doing that, they come back to Tulsa and win the Tournament of Champions. And so what a 2024 from start to finish for the Owasso Rams and Jalen-Montonai.
Okay, number one on your top stories of 2024, Bixby football.
Yes, Bixby football winning again. Sort of like with the Owasso basketball, Bixby didn't look like they were peaking at the right time going into the state playoffs. Of course, we should have known better. From the same could be said in 2022, but they get back on track and incredible. I mean, this just is mind blowing when you think of it. 10 state titles in 11 years, championship game 11 years in a row. They find a way, they get back on track, and not only do they win the state championship game, but it's how they won it. And it really was part of a wild state championship week where that first week of the state championships at UCO, there were 6 championship games, and 4 of them were decided by 1 point. Never seen anything like that. And that was one of those games, Owasso Bixby. And it wasn't, to me, I mean, sometimes in those games, and in some of those games we mentioned, you could say like one team, of course, give credit to all the winners. You've got to go and you do what you do and get the job done. But in some of those instances, you might say, oh, a certain team let that game slip away. They didn't execute at the end. And but in the Bixby Owasso game, it had that different feel to it, and that's what made it a classic. Can't really say. I don't think anyone's saying Owasso blew the game. Bixby won it. Bixby won it. I mean, it's just two great teams playing a great game, and Bixby with an iconic coaching decision by Coach Lauren Montgomery. They go for 2, and Cooper Parker with a great 2-point run on a play that looks gummed up
Yeah.
at the start, but then he bounces it out to the left and scores a walk-off state championship win, 43-42. And what an ending to the 6A1 season. And that was, to me, the number one story of the high school year in 2024.
Can you share that story? Bill Haston was telling me this, that because Bill was supposed to go to that game with you as he typically does, but he ends up going to Stillwater for some potential Mike Gundy news instead. Has to miss that game, but he sent you a text before that game. What did it say?
Well, he just didn't send me a text, but we were in the newsroom.
Okay, okay,
We were in the newsroom together because, well, originally we were going to drive over there together. So he's in the newsroom together. And then as the Mike Gundy thing was evolving, we realized he needed to be over there. So, but he said right before he left to go to Stillwater, he said, "This is going to be the greatest championship game ever." And of course, I mean, I thought I had high hopes that the game would be good, but I was thinking, well, I don't know about that. Well, Bill, as he so often is, turned out to be right. It was the greatest, at least that I've seen, the greatest state football championship game ever.
yeah. Well, that's a great list, Barry. It was a as the high school season always is around here. There, it's exciting. We've got good basketball. We've got great football. We're really lucky to have the great high school athletics that we have. You want to give a little shout out to All World and what's going on with that?
Yes, all world for the fall sports. All the honors will come out starting late in the month. We don't have the exact date set, but it's going to start late in the month as what we project for football, volleyball, softball, and cross country. And again, even though it's getting really late and pretty well past our deadline to receive nominations, if you're a coach and have not been contacted by us, don't have a form, and want to get a nomination in, send them to me like right away this week. We can still take your nominations and squeeze it in. But it is really getting to the midnight hour as far as taking those nominations. So it's not too late. So I want to emphasize that. And also we want to let everyone know we will be having the All World Awards banquet this summer. It'll be our eighth. It's hard to believe. Time flies by.
Now I thought it was ninth.
Ninth. You're right. It's the ninth. Well, it's be the eighth banquet. We didn't have a banquet officially in the COVID year, but it'll be our ninth really awards, all world awards celebration. And it will be a banquet again this year. So the date and on that has not been announced yet. So look forward to that.
Yeah, and of course we want to thank Bill Knight for all his support in that awards. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. When we first talked about putting on an award show, I thought it was one of the more crazier ideas I've ever heard in my journalism career. But it's been great, and it's been such a great thing to honor these kids and meet some of these kids that we watch on the field, and and of course, led by you, Barry, we do such extensive high school coverage at the Tulsa World, and it's been awesome. So the All World Awards have been just great, and I look forward to another one this year.
I do too. And again, Bill Knight helps make that possible. He is such a supporter of high school sports, not just at the All World Awards at the end of the year, but our weekly Athletes of the Week, which is going to be starting up for the winter sports. That'll be starting up not this week, but next week. So look forward to that too.
That's right. I'm glad you said that. So next week we'll look.
Send me
forward to that.
nominations. All the sports. Send me your nomination. Coaches, send me your nominations for all the sports.
All right, we'll call that a wrap for this week. Barry, appreciate the knowledge as always. Your top stories, great stuff. We'll talk next week.
Thanks, Patrick. Happy New Year, everybody.